Reggae when you are.
Let's do this. Danny McMahon,
Joe Gaspar.
how are you?
Good. How are
Yeah,
you?
I am good. I'm good. I know we have been trying to get this podcast up and running. This post Milan San Remo, post Iditarod Trail Invitational 1000 podcast up and running, and life has gotten in the way a little bit.
Man, it sounds like your show notes all tight. Like you just listed off a bunch of stuff in a very structured, formal way.
No, right off that's right off the top of my head, Danny. That is
Wow,
like
man.
that is
I'm
right.
well impressed.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to organize. I've been trying to organize my thoughts a little bit and take this a little bit more seriously. You know, not
Okay.
that we didn't take it seriously before, but I think we kind of started the show by just plugging in some mics and talking and cracking a bottle of wine and um, as I see our downloads pick up and people out there actually
Mm.
people subscribing and listening to the show week after week, I feel like more a bigger responsibility to produce something that's worth listening to. So take that.
I feel that. I
Yeah,
feel that. Well, good on you. So are we talking like kind of numbers we talking about here? Are we
we're in the
climbing up that podcast Apple Store or whatever
yeah
ranking?
we're in the tens.
Oh.
We're in the tens of.
Hmm.
We have some.
So let's see your girlfriend, my girlfriend,
Hmm.
you're my mom.
I have my
Um
girlfriend and my wife. Yeah.
oh, your wife, excuse me.
Don't tell my wife. Yeah, no, my wife. My wife is travel.
Total mistake.
My
I'll
wife,
issue a correction next podcast.
my wife is traveling right now, and I don't know. Before the podcast, I was looking at just checking our host, and it showed that there were a little spike, a small spike in downloads today.
Hmm.
So it got me excited, and then I started looking at crunching the numbers, Danny,
Hmm.
and looking at the data, and I realized I saw Houston, but then I realized she had a layover in Houston today, and
Mm.
she must have downloaded
So
a few episodes there. But that's good. I count her as a listener. That's good. I mean, I'm actually I'm impressed that my wife is taking time to listen to me. I thought she would be sick of me at this point. So
she loves you, Joe.
yeah, but that's I I love her too. I don't know if I'd listen to her podcast, to be honest with
Oh
you.
boy, you better edit that out.
I'm just kidding.
Um,
I'm
now
just
does
kidding.
that technical geeky question, does that service you were just referencing, does it look at all downloads everywhere, or is it just like one platform like Spotify, or is it everything?
No, it's everywhere. So it's our host. It's the people that we use to host, and
Gotcha.
it's just a number. It's a big
Gotcha.
number, and it will tell you where the downloads are happening. So it will break it down to city and country and that kind of stuff. And then you have the option with all the other, uh, I guess the platforms that you can get a podcast from, whether it's Spotify or Google Podcasts or Apple. you have a separate account with them, and in some cases they have better numbers.
Hmm.
They can tell you how long people have been listening.
Gotcha.
I'm no expert. I'm getting comfortable with it, and honestly, I don't look too much at that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. But you look like an expert, that's for sure.
I sound like it too.
Especially with that background.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool New York lofty background today. We're doing this on Skype again. We I want to make sure that all this works, Danny. The last thing I want to do
Uh-huh.
is invite some people on this on the podcast and have some sort of technical failure. I was going to WhatsApp you today.
Oh,
Are you familiar with WhatsApp?
I am familiar with WhatsApp, Joe.
Okay. Well, I mean, you are a bit of a Europhile, a Euro,
You
yeah,
can just say it. I'm
Europhile.
Eurotrash poser.
Yeah. Well, I think
Eurotrash
we
poser.
both are a little bit, but yeah,
So yeah, my buddy, I have one buddy I use WhatsApp with.
mm-hmm,
He's a former coworker of mine. He's in the UK, and we WhatsApp a little bit back and forth. But when I was at the tour, I very quickly realized that the teams they use Slack, and they also use WhatsApp.
mm-hmm,
And I don't. It seemed like they were maybe transitioning from one to another when I was on the tour a couple times, but basically the EF team, they were using WhatsApp, and so every single night and morning you would get updates like it's actually kind of cool, and it was basically like it's just like it was a simple document like a PDF or a screenshot, and it was just like here's the plan. So it's like first breakfast, second breakfast, bus leaves at this time, arrive at the race, start at this time, and then race starts at this time, like neutral rollout this time. I wasn't in their like private channels for like the actual team chat and
uh-huh.
whatnot, but I was on this external channel or whatever it was. But until I got into WhatsApp, I actually really like WhatsApp. I wish more people used it here. You have like chat and everything else. It's almost like what do you prefer?
Yeah. Well, I think it's obviously it's huge in other countries because of the data charges.
I know back in the day it was kind of extreme, but yeah. Suffice it to say, I have used WhatsApp a little bit. I like it. It's kind of a nice. Maybe I like it because I don't really use it much.
Mm-hmm.
Like I use a lot of other apps a lot, and maybe I'm just got fatigued from like I don't know texting people and what have you. But there's so many apps now. So, I mean,
Yeah. WhatsApp and
you can message you could message people all day on like
yeah,
Instagram and like
yeah.
Twitter and like I don't know. It's like
I think we find it.
yeah.
I think we find it fun because we don't use it that much in this country. But over there, it's just so
Yes.
over there, like people get in big trouble because of WhatsApp. It's that there's huge groups and there's WhatsApp groups and I am constantly seeing where there will be these private chats amongst soccer players and somebody will put something into the chat that shouldn't be there, inappropriate, or get themselves in some serious trouble. Politicians tend to have them, and
Oh.
they're huge.
Oh.
Some of these groups are. I heard that some of the old cycling teams have huge WhatsApps in Europe, like the old cast team. So it would, take it for example, like
Mm.
all of the members of anybody who was a member of CAS at some point, right, is on this group, going back to the early 70s, and they will, yeah, and they're in
Wow.
contact that way. Yeah, 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 yeah. So
That's so cool. I never thought of something
mm-hmm.
like that. That is really cool. Can you imagine if you were like in the group? Oh my God. And like
Yeah.
you see some ballers from back in the day chiming in. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's really
Yeah,
cool.
they use
I
it
didn't
to
know that
send like
exists.
yeah, they use it to send like birthday greetings, to each other, or just old photos and things like that. Yeah, a friend of mine
Oh
told me about
man.
it. I'm assuming that all the teams have them. I'd like to think that that Kaharural has one, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Movistar, all the old the guys from Reynolds and uh, Benesto and whatever's Movistar now probably have one.
Cool little app.
Yeah. Um, what else? we've had a lot of racing in the last couple of weeks, and races going on at the moment. So we had, I think we spoke about in our last podcast, we mentioned our friend Peter Eneman, my friend Peter Eneman,
Yes.
friend of our bike shop, and
Mhm.
he won. Turns out he won the Iditarod
He
Trail
did. Okay, great.
Invitational.
I was going to ask. Yeah,
Yeah, he
that's
won.
awesome.
Yeah, by a good amount too. I mean, I think he had almost a day into the into his rivals.
That's
So
quite the margin.
hmm yeah, and
One day.
I sent him a text, and just congratulating him, and I think he said he's going to stop by the bike shop as soon as he's. I didn't want to make him come down to the shop. I'm sure after a month away, you've got to kind of get your life back together, unpack, things like that. But hopefully we can have him on the show and
Pay some bills.
get the download from him.
Yeah, no, that would be amazing. I would really love to chat with him.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be great. Well, congratulations to him in advance, and we'll have to raise the glass when we see him and find out all the cool details.
Yeah. I think we'll save it for when you can come down to when we have you down at the shop again, and we can bring him over to the shop, and you can meet him, and he can be on a actual microphone. I don't want to have him on the phone or anything. So I think he's worthy of
Awesome.
an in studio appearance.
Yes, an IRL visit, and I'll try to speak some broken Czech to him to see if he understands me.
Yeah, that's what I'm very excited about as well. Czech talk.
Check that, checkmate.
Well,
Yeah, no, it sounds really cool. I'm glad he won, and I'm glad he, got home safe and all that. I'm sure he got a nice hot meal,
I
a
hope so.
chicken meal after that massive adventure. I wonder how many calories he burned. I think that's gonna be my first question.
Yeah, I'm sure.
8 bajillion kilojoules.
I'm sure he measures that out. I mean, I'm sure he's pretty aware of how much he's eating every day because he has to control that. He's only has so much food.
You have to.
Between stops. So
Yeah,
I think he's got pretty serious control of, or probably has a rough idea, or at least can tell us what he'll consume during the day.
Yeah, I would think so, right? And he's been doing it a while too. It wasn't his first rodeo, so.
No.
Anyway, that sounds great. Thanks for hooking that up. I'd love to chat with him. It's
Yeah.
like a whole new thing. Like I don't know anything about it, which is kind of the allure. It's like, tell me about this crazy thing you did.
Yeah.
We also got to talk about those gloves.
The what? Oh, the gloves.
The gloves.
The infamous pogies.
The child-sized gloves.
Yes. Huge.
As in like size of a child.
Yeah.
Not kid-sized gloves.
Gigantic.
They're absurd, but they look totally appropriate and necessary. So yeah, let's get them on. That'll be fun. Coming up, folks.
Soon enough.
Your new Alaska champion from Czech Republic via Illinois.
What else happened? Milano Sanremo happened this past Saturday. I think it's been covered covered by a lot of people, but not covered by us. What did you think of the race, Danny?
The best for last. This is the coverage. See, we say in media, you can be first, or you can be the best, or you can be the best.
Correct.
So you can be out with the breaking news, or you can have that deep, fine analysis, which we're bringing to people here. I thought it was it's an interesting race, but short version. I thought it was exciting. I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed watching it. I had fun interacting with the cycling nerds on Twitter, myself being one of them. I got up early to watch it. I think I watched the last. You know what? I got on right before. I was at almost right when they were about to be halfway, so around 150K, and so I had a good couple hours. I think maybe it was even 3.
3 hours.
It was great.
Nice.
Yeah, I got up pretty early. I stayed in that Friday night. I chilled out. I got a decent night's sleep, and then I got up and I fired up the coffee and made some eggs, and then I planted myself in front of my screen for about 4 hours.
Wow.
So for people who don't know, Milano Sanremo is 300 kilometers long. Technically, I think it was like 290 something, whatever. But it's the longest race on the calendar. It's one of the monuments. So there are 5 monuments. We talked about that, and then it's kind of like, there have been races already this year, but it's kind of seen as like the real first big one, the coming of spring. And so it's a super long race. But what's interesting about it is almost the entire race is somewhat uneventful, and it's only in the very last section, probably what, 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You have these two climbs which aren't particularly long and aren't particularly steep, but have enough punch in them to make for a suddenly very lively race. And then there's a very tricky descent that leads down into the town of San Remo. And so, there's all kinds of chatter about it and theories about it, like when does the race really start, et cetera, et cetera. But, these guys are racing for almost like 250 plus kilometers. And then they come into the finale, and it's like everything just like, I don't know, restarts or starts, depending on your point of view.
It's like a great.
So
It's like an
it's an interesting
opera,
race.
Danny. This is it's like
Yes.
a there it crescendos at the end, right? And the lead
Hmm.
up. I mean, you say that it's uneventful, but you've been riding or you've been riding your bike, and they've been I say riding, but they've been racing their bikes for 7 hours when the action
Yep.
starts. So
Yep.
the longest race of the season, I think. I think that
Yep.
is it's the longest. So it's the longest race of the year. It's the first big race, the first monument of the year. So a very important race, longest race of the year. And at this time of the year, it's March. So it's not like you have a ton of racing miles in you yet.
Hmm.
So
Right.
anything can. Some of these guys are, while they're more prepared than ever right now. Um, that first 200 and that first 200K that they're doing, they're like body blows, in a boxing match. They don't seem like
Hmm.
they do a whole lot of damage, but when you get into the later rounds, that kind of mileage can really soften you up a
Like
little
you,
bit.
like UFC with the 40 kicks to the legs, to
Mm-hmm.
the shins, to the calves.
Yep.
Yeah, you're 100% right.
Yep.
There are body blows. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean, by the way, to discount it.
No.
It's just that from a racing perspective, typically what happens, you have a breakaway.
Mm-hmm.
They usually have, I don't know, 5, 7, 10 minutes, something like that, for a long, long, pretty much the whole race. Maybe there are 5, 10 guys in that break, typically, and then um, shit hits the fan.
Yep.
All of a sudden, the teams start coming to the front. Their leaders are protected. You have 2, 3, 4 teams, depending on what's going on, starting to up the pace, close that breakdown, and really, then they start just working their riders in rotation and upping the pace
Mm-hmm.
for, what is it, Cipressa, the first, well, it's the penultimate climb, but the first of the last part of the race, so to speak, and then the Poggio. But yeah, what do you think of the race, man?
I watched the highlights, so I didn't see a whole bunch of the race itself, but I did watch the highlight.
My mo is like I jump on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I got my workstation set up. I got a couple screens, tweeting with some of my geeky friends.
Uh-huh.
I got the GIF machine going. Make some GIFs. And by the way, coincidentally, you know who died either today or this week? The guy who invented the GIF.
No.
Swear to God, true story. And although I have one bone to pick with him, rest in peace. You shouldn't speak ill of the dead, but he always said pronounce it GIF with a soft G. I'm sorry, I'm from the other school that says hard G GIF. But anyway, I got my GIF machine going. I got coffee going. My cat's with me. Girlfriend's still sleeping like a normal person. And yeah, and I'm watching the race with my race feed, and it's a great time of year. I love when the classics come around.
No, that's cool, man.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so the race was really cool. I thought it was, if you want to compare editions, like I thought this was, not definitely not the best or anything
Mm-hmm.
like that, but above average, like a good one. There have been a couple where they haven't been that exciting, to be honest. They're always pretty exciting, but you know what, they all can't be the same. So, I thought this one was above average. I dug it.
And the winner
I think
was not a what I would call a household name. Is that right?
I think that's very fair to say that.
Right?
Mate Mohoric,
Hmm.
a Slovenian rider. So very interesting. He was definitely not a hot favorite for the race. Maybe some people had picked him, but I definitely did not see him when I was perusing the internets for like pre-race favorites and all that kind of stuff. Definitely a great rider. He's won a stage in all three Grand Tours, and he's won like some cool races, but he's not like that top rider. So to win a monument, I think that it was definitely his first monument. So
The
anyway,
champion of the champion of Slovenia. Is that right?
that's right. That's right. Um, anyway, like it was great. So you saw the highlights.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing, the anticipation buildup was Tadej Pogacar, another Slovenian, um, and others were going to be, Wout van Aert from Belgium. They were going to be probably the two hot favorites, the 5-star favorites, and they were going to kind of attack each other on the possibly the Cipressa, the second to last climb, or the Poggio, the last climb. And Pogacar like threw in like 3 or 4 attacks. It was crazy. He just kept going and going. Like, where does he get this energy and power from? But he and Wout were going back and forth, and yet the others were still with them basically. So they weren't really to distance themselves, and it looked like, oh boy, it might come down to a sprint. So a lot of the favorites that definitely whittled down the group for sure, and it was down to like I don't know 6 or 8 or whatever number of guys it was. But what did happen was they got to the Poggio and they started to descend, and we all know it's like it's a famous, or if you're Marino Argentin, it's an infamous
Mm-hmm.
descent. Um, Tricky descent, pretty high speed, very technical, and you can kind of do really well if you're willing to take a ton of risks. But of course, if you take risk, you also have chance of going down or injuring yourself or what have you. Anyway, Mohoric, he went for broke. He just he
Yeah, it
just
looked like it.
attacked. He was just like, I got one shot. This is
Mm-hmm.
my shot. He hung on those climbs, and he took one shot, and he just went. And he took a lot of risks. And as you know now, in a lot of the cycling world, like the big storyline was he used a dropper post.
Yeah, and a dropper post for people who don't know, it's it's commonplace now in mountain biking, but on the road, it's not something that you see until now. You've never really seen it on in road racing. You see it now on some gravel bikes. So gravel guys in the gravel realm and gravel competitions have been starting to adapt the dropper post. But certainly the first time in the world tour for something like that. This and it's not the first time that we've seen oddball or mountain bike stuff adapted to the road. It's usually a race like Paris Roubaix where you'll see, you know, back in the '90s you'd see a RockShox adapted for a road bike or a soft
Hmm.
ride stem or some sort of suspension seat post, but
Or remember, Steve Bauer had that crazy frame.
oddball
It had
geo.
that huge oddball geometry.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, in a race like that, we've seen some experimentation going on, but in a race like this, where we're not talking about cobbles and things like that. It was a really interesting use of that seat post. I heard somewhere that he lives in that area, that the winner of the race lives in that area.
Well, he lives in Monaco.
Mm-hmm.
So when I lived in Nice, whenever I needed to do a super long ride, which was
Mm-hmm.
never, come on, who am I kidding? I didn't need to do super long rides, but whenever I felt the need for speed or the need for a long ride, I would ride to San Remo and back. And that's, I forget the distance, but it's an all day adventure for
Mm-hmm.
me. Leave early, get home late, have a couple of meals along the way. But yeah, it'd go right through Monaco. So Monaco to San Remo, I forget the distance offhand, but it's not very far. It's a relatively short car trip, and it would be like a decent little bike ride. But yeah, he lives in that area, like a lot of the top pros now,
Mm-hmm.
who earn salaries, north of $1 million. A lot of them live in Monaco for tax purposes, but also because that's actually a great area for cycling.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Nice Airport, which is an international airport, very close. That's usually a big uh, criterion for folks, and the rest. But yeah, he does live in that area, and so I think he knew those roads. I mean, I think a lot of the riders know the San Remo course pretty well at this
Yeah.
point. They recon it, but yeah, I think it does help to have some local knowledge.
Yeah, and
But what was interesting,
he obviously went in there prepared. I mean, to do the the
yeah,
dropper post, that was from the reports that I've heard. That was something very specific that he requested for the bike. Like he went in there with that intention of riding that with the dropper post.
just to make it super clear, because honestly, I had to look it up a little bit because I don't have a mountain biking background. I vaguely knew what the dropper post was about.
Mm-hmm.
So it has what they call travel, meaning I think it could be up to 50 millimeters in the UCI rules, but basically there's a little device that is attached to your handlebars, and you can like turn it, and if you turn it, your seat post, i.e. your seat, your saddle, will drop down. However you kind of set it up, it'll drop down a little bit, and once you do that, so you're sitting lower on the bike now,
Mm-hmm.
and basically it gives you a lower center of gravity.
Mm-hmm.
You have basically have more control of the bicycle. You can move your weight around in a little different way. It's faster because you have that lower center of gravity, and arguably safer, I would presume. And then what you can do after you're kind of done with your descent is, I believe, you just twist it the other way, and the seat kind of pops back up to where you had it originally. Now, Joe, correct me on any of that if I'm wrong, but that's how I understand this, the dropper post.
Yeah, it's a good. That's a good description of what it does. Yeah, you have a little lever. It's either a button. It's like it's like a mountain bike shift lever. Imagine like the way you'd push a little button, or you'd
His
actually
was
push something.
Yeah,
Did he have a
his
twist?
he had the twist, and it was on the. You can Google it. It's on the right drop of the drop bar. So it's on
Oh,
the
okay.
right drop, right where the hook is, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the drop bar. So you have the flat part, and then it
Kind of
starts to curve
like
up. So it was kind of right there. It reminded me of a grip shift
the
a
old
little bit.
road grip shift, similar
Yes,
to
yes.
that. Okay.
And then there were some videos that came up later. These like cycling internet sleuths
Mm-hmm.
were like, oh, here's the little second where he actually twisted it, and you could see him do a little something with his bar.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to be clear, first of all, you made a really good point. This is pretty brand new in road cycling, at least at the highest level. We haven't really seen something like it. Maybe it existed before, but probably not. So this was kind of new. But to be clear, when you were watching it, maybe someone noticed it. I certainly did. I don't think most people did, even really astute observers. I don't think people noticed him using it on the descent. They were
Mm-hmm.
just like, "Wow, he's going hell for broke. He is bombing descent. He almost went off
You
into
almost crash.
the rock
Yeah,
wall
yeah.
twice. One time because he put his head down, and then he lost his line, which is a classic like mistake, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he was going down, and if you put your head down, you can like get a huge aerodynamic benefit, And of course, he's just dying because he's like maxed out. So he lifts his head up. Next thing you know, to save himself, he has to actually go off the road for a second. I hope it doesn't like overtake. I feel in some ways it kind of has. Like it's been the dominant kind of storyline. Like I hope it doesn't overshadow historically like what he did, because he put in an amazing effort, the ride of his life. Basically he put in like this crazy effort to get over those climbs with these top world's best riders. Wout van Aert. He was with Pogacar. He was with Roglic. He was with Van der Poel. Like all these guys. So that was a massive thing unto itself. If he
Mm-hmm.
had finished 10th and still did that, I'd be like, wow, what a great ride from Etienne Mahorch.
If what I've seen on the internet and YouTube has have anything to say about it, all the talk has been about the dropper. All the talk has been about the dropper post. Like
No.
every little every video, every blogger vlogger has been focused on the dropper post. Because
Yeah.
nothing mentions his name, but everything I scroll through either
Hmm.
has the dropper post highlighted or an
Yeah.
arrow pointing at the post, or zero mention of his name.
All
But
caps,
yeah.
exclamation points,
Hmm.
dropper
Oh,
post,
is it?
wins Milan San
Will it
Remo.
ruin cycling? Cycling is ruined. Things like that.
Oh,
So that is,
once again ruined.
yeah. So that for sure has been the center of the chatter on a lot of vlog channels, um, bike
What's
racer
interesting,
channels. Hmm.
yeah, what's interesting too, as you know, like he was one of the riders most closely associated with the Super Tuck,
Hmm.
which is like the most aerodynamic, probably the riskiest position on a bicycle. So when these Tour de France pros, World Tour pros, when they're bombing these ascents, like in the Alps, Pyrenees, doing 60, 70 miles an hour, some of them were going to what's called the super tuck. So they lean over the handlebar and they put their head kind of down, their torso kind of on, they rest on the handlebar, they lean down, and then they tuck in their elbows and they got their knees kind of tucked into, and their butt is off the seat. It's on the top tube of the bicycle or hovering above it. And so that's the super tuck. And so that's like the fastest you can go. The problem is it's also very dangerous because all your weight's moving over toward the front of the bike.
Hmm.
So then the UCI, the governing body of world cycling, is like, this is super dangerous. We have to protect you guys. We're the governing body. This is our job. We're banning this. So you can't do this anymore. You'll be out of the race or you'll be fined heavily or something like that. So Mohoric was, he's considered one of the great descenders in the pro peloton right now. So people were speculating. There's some good tweets from like a couple years back, from some pretty astute cycling observers who were like, "Oh, great, ban the super tuck. You know what's going to happen next? People are going to use dropper posts because it allows them to get down a little bit
Yeah.
lower." And sure enough, Mohoric comes up with the dropper post and wins Milan San Remo. Anyway,
I think it'll be like Greg LeMond and aero bars at the Tour de France
that's a
at
great
the
analogy.
'89 Tour de France. It was a big
That's a
deal at the
great
time,
analogy.
but now we just remember him winning it. You don't see a time trial bike without aero bars anymore. That, like, you can't even imagine that. In fact,
Right.
when I was
It would
watching.
look super weird if you didn't. You'd be like, "Where's your aero bars?"
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, but at that time, that was
Hmm.
absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it was just something that.
It looked gimmicky and
Hmm.
like weird. People are like, "Oh, you're ruining cycling. What are
Yeah.
you doing to the tradition of our sport?" He's got his Oakleys.
Uh huh.
He's got his like helmet. He's got his suit. He's got this and that.
Yeah, that was
It's a
try.
good it's a really good analogy,
Yeah, he
though.
brought that from the triathlon world because it was kind of being employed in the triathlon world. So that and the drop-ins, he had
Scott
the
dropping.
Scott
Yeah.
drop-in handlebars. So.
Yeah, he looked at it and was like, "Duh, why aren't we doing this? This
Hmm.
is so obvious." And then, now every single I mean, they use that and way more now, obviously. It's setting up Joe to be like a great classic
Hmm.
season. I mean, you have so many guys on form right now. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how fast all of these guys are so early in the season. I mean, we spoke about it before, and how they're firing already. And these are names you're going to hear during the Tour de France. So I mean, they're going to be, I mean, they're winning now, and they'll be winning again in July. Um, just it blows my mind that these guys are in such good shape right now. Pogacar he looks like he's in tour form already. So
I know it's nuts.
I,
It's nuts.
I would imagine he's got to shut it down for a little while
Yes.
after classic season. But there's been a lot of talk about these young guys, about guys like Pogacar and them burning red hot, and how we can expect to see a lot of young guys winning things like the Tour de France, winning these big races earlier in their careers, but also not lasting very long in the sport, just because how long can you burn this red hot? I don't see these guys being around when they're 34 years old, you know. at this
That's a
pace.
great point because for him right now that would be like 10 years plus. Like how's he gonna last? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, he's 20,
it's always
22, right?
yeah,
Yeah. So
something like yeah, right around there. It's crazy. I think it's a great point. Like Matthew Vanderpool, it's funny. He's already like 27. He had a great post race interview. The guy's like, hey, like Matthew, like how do you feel about today's result? Like you were third. You weren't even supposed to race. Like you must be happy with that to some extent. And he's like, well, yeah, but it's another missed opportunity. I didn't win again,
hmm
and I'm getting old.
yeah,
And I'm like, wait, if Matthew Vanderpool's calling himself old,
yeah.
I'm screwed because
Oh,
he's 27. And I just remember him as a little baby, like racing as a junior. I saw him race in Cyclocross Worlds, and he won the U23 or the junior championship in Louisville. And I'm just like, oh my god, like he's considering himself old now. So, but yeah, he and Walt Van Aert, like these crazy young great riders. But yeah, now they're in their 27 whatever age range, and then yeah, you have these new guys coming up. He's so on fire already. It's not even end of March yet.
yeah. It's
Um,
like, where do you go from here? I mean, like, like, what else what else are you gonna do? I mean, it's amazing. It's just amazing, to watch these guys these days, and I mean, Vanderpool saying that he's old. 27 used to be like the prime for a guy who was going to win
you
the
were
Tour de
just
France.
starting,
Oh,
yes.
that was you were going into your window, your tour
Yep.
window. You would
27 to like 32, something
yeah,
like that.
yeah, that was considered like your prime time, 27, 28, 29. Your late 20s was that's kind of when those tour champions, that was a sweet spot for guys that were going to win the Tour de France, you know.
Well, it's pretty nuts now because then obviously on the other extreme, not to go too far into this, but you have Valverde, he's what 40.
Mhm.
You have this other extreme too, where they're guys racing very competitively until their late 30s.
Yeah.
So it's pretty wild. I mean, you see those stats. Sometimes people come up with fun stats like, this like 20-year-old guy wins a stage and Valverde was like second. So he's like
Yeah.
literally twice his age and uh
I would
whatever.
I would
But
I would put him as like the last of that generation, like the
mhm,
last of that group that where guys were 27, 28 when they were coming into their prime. I mean, he's kind of an outlier. There's not a
yeah,
lot of people like him, but
he's
you know,
like Tom Brady.
I don't see guys in their mid 30s. I think Jumbo Visma,
Roglic.
Roglic is probably going to be if he wins a tour, which fingers crossed. I really like that guy, but I see
Mhm.
him as being one of the last older guys to win the tour in a while
And what
because
is he? What's he like 33 or something?
maybe early 30s.
Roglic here is 32 years old.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think if he were to win a tour, which I mean, I think he's
Mhm.
still in contention. I think he could still maybe be there. But I think he's the last guy that we're going to see in his 30s winning a tour for a long time. Remember when we used to know I used to know at least every single American in the Pro
Yes.
Peloton. I knew
Yes.
everybody. I knew where they were
Yep.
from. I knew their name. I knew their hometown.
Hmm.
I mean, I knew everything. I knew everybody's biography, how they got there, what teams they were with here. And these days, I mean, first of all, there's not a lot of Americans. I mean, there's more Australians in the Pro Peloton right now than there are Americans.
Yeah. It's true.
I
It's
mean,
true.
and there are a couple of young kids. There are a few young kids that have won some races recently, right? There's a guy with UAE,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I mean, there's a handful, and they have very Euro names. So they're,
Yeah. Sepp Kuss. Sepp
hmm
Kuss. He is.
he's a Colorado boy.
He's probably. Wait, am I forgetting someone? I'd say he's
hmm
the number one rider right now for America. He won a tour stage last year, I believe.
hmm
Um, but you know who won a stage today? It's funny we're talking about this. Is Ben O'Connor.
hmm
He won that stage today in was it what is it, Catalonia that's happening right now?
I
What
think
race am I thinking of?
yeah, Catalunya, but I think he's Australian.
Oh no, you're right. Ben
hmm
O'Connor. Who am I? You know what? I think I might have been confusing him with someone else.
Yeah, there was another American who won in the last week or so. Young kid
Yeah,
with the UAE team, I think.
yeah, that's my bad. I was thinking of him. Australians, Americans,
We'll do a run.
Anyway, your point is well taken. I think back in the day too, it seemed like those riders were around a lot longer. Like
Mm-hmm.
guys like Christian Van de Velde, guys like Hincapie, guys, it just seemed like they're around forever. Like they just raced for like 20 years. I don't know if that's accurate, but it felt like, of course, we would see them in Downers Grove and,
Yeah,
you know,
well, we were familiar with them from well, America had quite a domestic scene back then, and there's not much of a domestic racing scene here anymore.
I
I
know
think
it's
these days,
weird.
I mean, and if I had a kid who was intent on racing professionally, what I would do is get him over to Europe by the time he was 16 or 17 years old, and on some sort of
Yep.
a feeder team, and because that's the way to do it now. It's just different. If you aspire to be a professional these days, um, you've got to I mean, people are winning the Tour de France when they're 21 years old. So
It's crazy.
if you're not in Europe, getting ready by the time you're 17 or 18, I don't really, unless you're a super duper talent, um, and you can get there when you're 21 and be a neo pro when you're 2021. Um, it's just not going to work for you anymore. So.
Yeah, and then not to be all doom and gloom, but the races here now have dried up. Like Tour of California
Hmm.
hasn't been around for a few years now. The Philly Classic is
Yeah.
even gone. Um, the Tour of Utah is gone. I believe. Like,
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
I don't think it's doom and gloom. There, other countries are
pros.
having European countries are having the same problem. So I hear
Well,
the same things
but
are
I think
coming out of Spain. So within the amateur racing scene, there's just the fields are not. There's a lot of people participating in bicycle racing. There aren't a lot of people that show up to win the race. So there's.
I think it's a little bit different here though. We lost Tour of Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Pro Cycling Challenge, aka the Tour of Colorado. They couldn't buy the name,
Mm-hmm.
so they call it the Pro Cycling Challenge, which sounds like a really dorky triathlon. Tour of California, and we lost the Philly Cycling Classic. I mean, we kind of lost our top four races in like a couple of years, and it wasn't just because of the pandemic, but
Yeah,
um,
but we lost it in proportion to our racing scene here in the United States. So I mean, it's always been a niche, small sport in the United States. So I mean,
I would argue it hasn't been this bad in 20 years.
oh, it's more than 20, yeah, more than 20 years, Danny. I mean, I've never seen it this bad, and we've been around the sport for 30 years. So I
Hmm.
mean, I don't. I think we talked about it before. How I think that our future pro tour racers are probably going to come out of the gravel scene and
Yep.
probably out of gravel and maybe mountain biking, but
Yep.
not from the road. They're not going to come through it, first on the road. I think they'll come out of some other discipline because you're not getting introduced to bicycle racing on the road anymore. You're not you don't have
Yep.
those races anymore. To junior racing is not a thing anymore. Um, you know, you're lucky to find a
Yeah. At
road
least
race. You know.
I know it's really crazy. I say that with a lot of sadness, actually. Because I mean, yeah, it used to be like I don't know when I was like doing the cycling journalism game,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm kind of removed from now. But it'd be like honestly, I would be like, hmm, and this is so like crazy to say, but I'd be like, do I want to go to the Tour of California or do I want to go to the USA Pro Challenge? I'm not sure. And now I would sit and have these absurd like I do this like pros and cons and like it was in hindsight it was crazy to even think that now there's nothing to go to. I mean there's just no big races to go to. There's some crits,
Mm-hmm.
and don't get me wrong, like there's still some good series, no disrespect. There's a Intelligentsia series here in Chicago area,
Mm-hmm.
which is fantastic. They're still racing, but it's just like we lost our three or four biggest races, which
Yeah, but
is
and
just
even
hardcore.
but those races, you can go to one of those races. You can go to the Intelligentsia Cup, but there's not a single guy there that's going to go
Right.
that you're going to see in the Tour de France, right?
Right.
Well, and back in the day, we would go to the Downers Grove, Criterium National Championship,
Yep.
and Jonathan Vaughters was walking the sidelines, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, and there were
Right.
those guys. There were guys in that race that you would see a year or two down the road in Europe racing
Yep.
professionally.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so that's the big difference too, is just that the competition. There are people racing bicycles, doing criteriums and racing bikes in this country. Um, but it's like you know, I mean, it's strictly for fun. I mean, it's not. They're not heading to the next. None of them are going to the next level.
It really feels like that. I'm not as
Hmm.
tuned into the racing as I used to, but that at
Hmm.
least that's my impression as well.
Hmm. I
It's
mean,
it's
and that's how I.
there's not like a bigger goal
Mm-hmm.
seemingly. It's kind of like maybe a handful will get on one of those teams where they send them over and they live in that like house in Belgium and they race, kermesses or crits
Yeah.
or whatever. Maybe there is a handful of that, and you love to see it, of course, but it definitely feels very, very different now. And it's not just pandemic. This was happening before pandemic. Like Tour of California has been gone for a few years now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's sad to even talk about it. Well, let's hope there's some sort of resurgence. It is great to see guys like Sepp Kuss,
Mm-hmm.
and some of these dudes like winning the hardest races. They're winning stages in the
Yeah.
Tour de France. Like it's pretty insane. So it's great to see that. Yeah, I was gonna say even at cyclocross, there are a couple of great riders out there putting in putting in great performances here and there, but even that seems to be like on a downtrend almost compared to what we had maybe like 5-10 years ago.
I don't. It's tough. It's tough to wrap your head around it. Cycling is very popular right now. Riding bikes is super popular right now. But bike racing, the
Mm-hmm.
way that we knew it, that way is probably at its lowest point right now. It doesn't seem to have a lot of leadership. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I don't hear about it. I don't know about it. I own a bicycle shop and I don't get any kind of correspondence. I don't see anything in my, in my industry rags that do anything to promote the sport or to grow the sport or do anything. So, I'm there. I am, you would think that if somebody was trying to do something, it would reach me. Um, but I don't see any of it. So and so as a
Well,
bike shop, and I am at I'm the grassroots guy. I would be the guy that would
yeah.
be in charge of promoting that at a.
If anyone would know, you would know with your
Hmm.
varied experience. You put on races and you've raced.
Yeah.
I mean, when you told me that when we went to the U.S. Nationals in DuPage County, which seems like yesterday, but I remember you telling me that very specifically. Like, I haven't received one piece of like PR, no posters, flyers, nothing.
Nothing.
And you're in a bike shop, like you're a short car ride from the venue. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that was kind of insane. I certainly saw very little of it. I saw a couple tweets, and I'm pretty tuned in, more or less
Exactly.
compared to the regular
Exactly.
person. I saw very little.
Hmm.
It was a great event. It was great racing, but like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also it's a lot of work. Um, you know, if I think back to when we were involved in the sport, um, it was a lot of it was very mom and pop. It was like little league. There were parents that would drag their kids out to the races. There were always some parents that were involved, and it takes bike shops having clubs and putting on training rides. And I think that there's also there's a bit of maybe fear to do group rides these days, to do anything like that.
Oh, like safety and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we're in a very litigious society these days. So and I know for a fact that bike shops are very concerned about doing anything related. It's always a conversation of,
That's
it's always something that people talk about these days.
That's wild. I never even thought about that aspect, Joe. Oh my
Hmm.
God.
Yeah, I mean as soon as you're as an organization as a business, as soon as you say, hey, join the you know, ABC Bike Shop group ride on Saturday morning. Well, now it's our group ride, and who's responsible for that? And if somebody gets hit by a car on that or has an accident,
Sign a waiver.
yeah, yeah, and it's harder. I think it's much harder these days to even if you want to do something, it's something that you might double clutch a little bit before before actually
Mm,
going out and doing it. And then parents letting their kids go out and ride the open roads. How do you put a 12-year
mm.
old kid on a road bike and tell him to go do 100 miles? So
I mean, to be fair, I mean, even myself as an old man, like going out, like I still, it's always on your mind, no matter what your age is. But yeah, your point is well taken.
yeah.
Um, to go to lift this mood up a little bit from the doldrums of current USA Cycling, Joe, I wanted to tell you very quickly about this conversation I had tonight. I stepped out to get a bite to eat after work and before this call, and I was reading my book, that I told you about Okanya,
Mm-hmm.
called Reckless, which I'm enjoying. There will be a full book report, by the way.
Awesome.
I'm halfway through. It's a fascinating read. Um, but the guy asked me, he's like, "Hey, what are you reading?" And I told him. And long story short, we started talking about cycling movies or movies about bike racing, and
This
like mainstream movies.
and
This is just a guy who's in my local pizzeria, yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, so he's like, we're talking about bike racing movies, and he actually mentioned it first. So he's like, "Do you remember that movie? It's like that kid who wants to like be like an Italian bike racer." And I'm like, "Breaking Away?" And he's like, "Yes." He's like, "I just saw that for the first time because his dad's really into cycling." And he's like, "I'm a runner myself, but I just watched Breaking Away." And I told him, "Wow, that's so cool. It's like a classic movie." And I dropped all the trivia like that. I won an Oscar for best screenplay, I think in 1980 or 81 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so next thing you know, we're talking about other movies. Now, can you name two or three that we maybe talked about? Not to put you on the spot. Breaking
Um.
Away was one of them.
Yeah, American Flyers.
American Flyers, boom, you
Mm-hmm.
got it. Give me one more.
Well, there's a weird one that involves bike racing that I stumbled onto at some point. It's called the Key Exchange.
No way, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
Oh my
I don't.
god.
It doesn't really center on. You would probably like it. Um,
Because I'm weird.
well, no, because it involves bicycle racing in New York City.
Oh, is it a relatively new movie? Is it like Alley Cats?
No,
Oh my God,
it's.
Roger Ebert has a review of it from the 80s.
Why don't you read that review? Let's read that review.
Well, no, it's a YouTube video. Key Exchange 1980s reviews. The official Roger Ebert. It's on YouTube.
Wow.
Um, should I watch it? I want to watch it.
Yeah, you should watch it. I don't think it's a particularly, I don't think it's a particularly memorable movie, except for the fact that it involved and it had some bicycle racing in it, and somebody from Breaking Away is in that movie. I believe Daniel Stern is in that
Ooh.
movie.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good one, Joe. I didn't know about that one. There's another movie we talked about, and I'll give you a hint. The main actor in the movie, his name, let's say, is something you might eat at breakfast.
Oh yeah, Kevin Bacon. I know. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, of course.
Quicksilver.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
So
that a
quick.
very early, not only actually more of a cultural, more than a bike racing movie, huge
Yes.
effect on our culture and people of our time.
Yes.
Because
Very good.
I was working in a bike shop. Uh, you know,
Uh-huh.
I was working in
Uh-huh.
bike shops around that time, so I know the effect firsthand.
I need to rewatch that because I haven't seen it in ages. So we have and people, if you're listening, if you care, you have to watch these movies. So Breaking Away, American Flyers with Kevin Costner. Um, what's the one we just said? Quicksilver with Kevin
Mm-hmm.
Bacon. Two Kevins. There's three. We talked about the Key Exchange, which I need to watch. I don't think I've ever seen it. We talked about Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
you,
Yeah,
that,
bicycle.
you got to include that. We also talked. Now this is totally different, but we also talked about Icarus, that documentary about the doping.
Oh yeah.
Did you
Mm-hmm.
see that a couple of years ago? Anyway, that was my little chat with my local pizzeria guy tonight.
And he knew
Um,
was he aware of all of these movies? Has he seen
nope,
those movies? None of them.
he had heard he vaguely knew. He's a younger dude, so he for him, Quicksilver would be like a real throwback. So
Mm-hmm.
he was vaguely like kind of familiar with it. Maybe he did not know American Flyers, so I said he should see that first since he's already seen Breaking Away. Um, and yeah, I think that was like the five. But Joe, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the movie you were in, uh, a very big Hollywood movie in which you rode a bicycle,
Mm-hmm.
even if it was just for a brief moment. Do you care to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was uh now I'm drawing a blank what that movie was.
Flatliners?
Flatliners, correct. Correct. With Kevin Bacon was in that movie as well.
Oh, see how the world is so small.
Kiefer Sutherland and
Great movie, by the way.
Julia Roberts. Did you see it? Did
I,
you
I watched it recently, and I took a little photo on my phone, a little video of you in that scene. But it's hard to see you, but it's like a handful of guys, right?
Yeah, right. Down, you know where that was? That was on North Avenue and Damon.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That was right on.
Wow.
Yeah, that was on North Avenue and Damon, in the Wicker Park neighborhood here in Chicago.
That's right near me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. That was pretty cool. No, and those were
Oh, that's
all.
cool.
I think there was a handful of pretty fast bicycle racers in that scene. You know, Fabio Orlandi. There were kind of
Yep.
a who's who of local bike racers in that whooshing by Kiefer
Yeah.
Sutherland. And I was,
Yeah.
you know what? I was the last one. So I positioned myself as the last one, and I bumped Kiefer Sutherland in that one. So I knew I did it on purpose so that I would know which one I was. I was the last one. Yeah.
Oh
So
my God, that is so cool. I know we talked about this briefly in a
hmm
previous pod, I
yeah.
believe, but that was so cool. You had your 15 seconds of fame, I guess.
Yeah, certainly. I was bit by the bug at that point. Look at me here. You know, we're in show business. I guess this is some sort of show business.
Huge.
We're putting on a show.
Um,
This is a show, right?
there you go.
It's
Um, so anyway, I'm pretty stoked. I'm stoked about the coming races. We got Ghent Velvegem, I think, on Sunday. We got some good racing going on right now, Catalunya during the week here.
Did
I'm
I hear?
usually only able to catch like the last couple of minutes because of work, but Ghent Velvegem is on a Sunday. I think that's gonna be a must watch for me again. I'll be up early. Um, yeah, and we're getting into we're gonna be in the real thick of it with Flanders, Roubaix, Liège, the Ardennes, Amstel. We're gonna be we're heading into the finest period. I would say. I know you like your Grand Tours a lot, but
No,
I think for
I love this.
classics, this is probably the
I love this
creme de
part
la
of the
creme.
year. You know, this part of the year is pretty. It's always pretty exciting and kind of gets you going.
Mhm.
And I've been riding the trainer a bit, so you know
Oh,
it's always easier to be excited about these races when you're actually riding a bike as opposed to when you're just sitting around doing nothing. You
yes.
with your new bike, I'm sure it makes it a little bit a little easier to get excited about these things. You know, I know the more detached I am from my physical, from the actual bicycle, the more detached I am from
Mm,
bike racing. But
interesting.
as I turn the pedal, the more I turn the pedals, the more I'm kind of drawn to the sport again because I don't know, I just feel more in
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to
you know.
me. I'm kind of bonkers either way with
Mm-hmm.
the bike racing. But by the way, I didn't ask you, and I don't know if I really noticed what bike. Do you have like one primary road bike right now, or do you have like two, like an indoor and then a
No,
road
no,
bike for
I have
outdoors?
one. I have a look road bike, a 595, an older bike. I mean,
Nice,
it's 12, 13 years old at this point. Durace,
nice,
pretty bike.
nice.
All I need right now, you know,
No, that's great. That's great. I love it.
yeah.
It's a great bike.
Hmm. Yeah, I think
I was
as I mentioned before, I am, my next bike will, I think it's going to be a steel bike. I'm more and more drawn to that. Although, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. You know, I don't change bikes very often. I usually ride a bike. I ride a bike, and I keep it. I ride it for a long time.
it's the way it should be. It's the way it should be. Built to last.
Hmm.
I'm excited.
You are excited, and you been riding your new bike? I guess that's a
I have been
question.
riding, not nearly as much as I want, but I have been riding. I was out for a couple like 20 to 25 mile rides,
Hmm.
basically to the lakefront, real chill, super chill. I'm just getting back into it, and so it's like it's funny. You're just even like your soft tissue, your
Oh.
butt, and
Uh-huh.
you're just kind of like getting used to like riding a
Oh yeah.
bicycle again. I'm like, oh, like dialing in the shoes a little bit.
Uh-huh.
It's been a while, and just tweaking the position some more. But it's good. I love the bike. It's fun to ride, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. Yeah, just a couple like shorter rides, hanging out at the lakefront with work and different things going on. You know, kind of busy with work, so by the time I get out there and then do like a half hour in the path, I'm already looking at an hour and a half easy. So that if I do that on a lunch break or before work,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got to kit up and kit down, as it were. So it's yeah. I try to really maximize the weekends. This weekend we had my mom's 85th birthday party,
Hey,
and we had the bike race and a couple other things, and there was some funky weather. But anyway, these are all excuses.
Danny is somebody who just went through this in the last year. Um, yeah, take it easy. It's easy, I think, for both of us having been, on the opposite end of it, where it's just biking, riding all the time, where it was a priority, kind of ran our schedule worked around our bike,
A
our
religion.
actual ride, our training ride,
Hmm.
and training dictated the rest of our life. Now our life dictates our riding, it's a little bit, we're at the opposite end of that. And so I think, you jump back in, as you said, you're pretty gung ho. You get back into it, and you want to get back to that point again. But life is very different. You're different. Your life is different. Your body is
Yep.
different. So I'm actually having a lot of fun, just trying to figure out what I'm capable of again. Like
Hmm.
what am I at this age capable of doing on a bicycle again?
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
that's really it. That's been pretty interesting. I think I spoke about getting a new pair of shoes. I've been doing that
Hmm.
this week. I've been,
Okay.
I molded my shoes, put my
You baked your shoes.
I did, and
Are you liking this?
amazing, Danny, amazing. I mean, it's just
Really good, huh?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it took a couple of times in the oven, but boy, they fit like a glove. They fit like a
That's
glove, and
great.
then I got some semi-custom orthotics
Oh,
from a company called G8
okay.
Performance, Australian company, and so it's the custom moldable shoe with the semi custom orthotics. It's kind of
Hmm.
a modular orthotic. You have kind of uh,
Yep.
you have an arch uh, component to it, and it's adjustable in different sizes. It's one of I like it actually. A lot of fitters prefer it just because it's something that the person can do and change and
Hmm.
adapt. Um, and so I wouldn't say that I'm there yet. My right foot is perfect.
Hmm. Oh, I
I've got my
gotcha.
right foot nailed. My left foot is it's probably going to take a few rides to really get to where I
Yeah.
want it. Because you put it in, you put the insert in, you play with it a little bit, kind of find a spot for it. There are different sizes of arches, arch sizes. So trying to figure out what arch
Yep.
size you need, um, you know, that's um, that's something that you know I'm trying to figure out at the moment. So yeah, it'll be a little bit of a process, but very
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. I think I was hearing what you were saying there. I was thinking the whole time, like, trust the process, like, just enjoy it,
Hmm.
appreciate it. My coach when I was racing cyclocross, I always kind of expressed that. He's like, just follow the process, enjoy the process, appreciate the process. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Be pretty methodical about it. But yeah, I've just been kind of listening to the body. I've
Hmm.
just been going out and enjoying the riding. It's a kind of a nice time of year actually because there aren't that many people out yet. And so it's been kind of fun to hit the lakefront path is obviously very easy spinning, but even just to kind of go out there and, I could stop pretty easily and tweak my position a little bit and kind of ride around and feel, yeah, safe enough on that busy path. And then just kind of like when I have more time during the week and especially weekends, can head north, go out and do some of those longer rides. But yeah, goal is to amp up the fitness over time and hopefully in the summer just be able to do some decent rides.
I think that ride, the ride from the shop down to, depending on how far we want to go, you could do a one-way ride that's about 80 to 90 miles.
Mm.
That's a lot of limestone,
Oh,
or
nice.
you can do you could do it down and back to
Cool.
somewhere like Morris, Illinois, something like that.
Mm. Now,
That's a nice
Joe,
day ride.
is there an option to do ride there, Uber back?
I don't know. Uber would be an expensive Uber, I think, but maybe having somebody pick you up down there. What I wanted to do, what I've wanted to try are these train these cycling these one day cycling adventures that people are doing. It's one of the fastest growing um the fastest growing style of bicycle touring are these train rides where people ride to a place and take a train
Oh,
home.
multimodal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wrote about
Oh,
this.
did you? So
I
that
did for
is,
Business Insider.
yeah, that is one of the biggest
It's hot.
areas
It's
of
hot.
growth in the cycling and the bicycle adventure movement. Hmm.
You're 100% right. If you Google multimodal cycling, it'll come right up.
That's your article.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Um, and so just Google multimodal
Multimodal, is that
cycling.
what it is? I got to get cool
What
about
was,
that. Multimodal.
yeah, different modes.
Uh
So
huh.
what was really cool about it was I just kind of found out about this story by cruising Instagram. And I found Tim Johnson's Instagram
Mm-hmm.
and or it was a Strava, one of those. And actually he was doing this ride with one of these rides with Neil Bezdek, who's another friend. But um long story short, he had a picture of his bike ride and then he was also on a train and I was like, oh, okay, what's he doing here? And long story short, he's like, yeah, multimodal. And then I talked to Neil and Tim Johnson about it. Tim Johnson being the former multi national champ of cyclocross.
Cyclocross. Yeah.
Um, but anyway, it was a fun little story to do, and you're 100% right. So the idea is you can take the headline I love. One of the hottest things in cycling right now is riding your bike someplace far and then taking the train home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
There you go.
essentially it. Yeah.
So I haven't done it myself though, but I want to. Now, have
Yeah.
you done it?
No, I haven't. And that's something that I want to try. I never, I've always ridden home. I picked a
Yeah,
spot and rode home. But the idea of riding somewhere and being able to take a train back, that's cool. It will allow me to discover some roads and some places that maybe I've never ridden a bike to, and that would be, I don't know about carrying a tent on the back of my bike and doing that,
right,
but
right.
I would be down for a long ride and taking a train ride home. So,
Yeah, like I think just start. I would do something like because it's so funny we're talking about it because I've literally thought about doing this and I just
mhm.
haven't done it and I need to, and I'd be happy to do it with you or whatever. But
Mhm.
you can jump on like I guess the Metro
Yeah.
and like I think there's maybe a Metro that goes to like St. Charles at DeKalb. I mean that's a 60-mile ride. Like that would be kind of a fun thing to do. Like just jump on the Metro. You figure out what the regulations are, when you can bring your bike on. I know in New York they're pretty strict about times and which cars and all that, but whatever. You figure that out. Jump on the train. You ride at the train station and you can drink your coffee on the way out, and then you get dropped off at the farthest point, wherever the hell that is, and then you ride home.
Yeah, that's
And
pretty
it's
much
like
it, right?
the nice thing is it builds in some kind of an interesting efficiency because you don't, first of all, you don't have to go out and come back the same way, which
Mm-hmm.
isn't the worst thing in the world, but it's nice to have that variety. And it's just fun. Like, hey, we're gonna take the train today. And you could take it to Milwaukee, and then just be like, I'm gonna ride home. I mean, I've ridden to Milwaukee and back, and that's a long day. But it's just a nice variation, and it's kind of a fun break. So if you could think of some cool places to go,
Yeah,
I would totally be down for that.
I'm gonna poke around. I'm gonna see what if there's something something interesting to do that with around here. You know,
Hmm.
Lake Geneva.
Especially if yeah, like Geneva, or if we can incorporate some like not off road, but the rails to trails is
Mm-hmm.
obviously pretty popular in Illinois in certain places. I've seen a lot of that. I've ridden some of it. That would be fun, man.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like that. That's where I'm at now with my cycling in my cycling life. I guess where I'm looking for different things to do. I'm seeing there's a lot of interesting things. There's a lot of things that I haven't done in the cycling world, and that's uh, you know, like you, I have spent most of my time trying to go fast or training or
Hmm.
going out with a purpose.
Yeah.
And certainly with your easy days sprinkled in, well, now the realization's hitting me that every day can be an easy day. For the most part, I really had to. It's kind of hard not to push yourself.
Hmm.
Like to ride that when I find myself maybe doing a ride with some friends and going their pace, and it's I'm like, boy, this is the way the other side lives, huh? It's like, you don't sweat. You're just not like you're not huffing and puffing. Everyone's talking. It's a very. I'm like, boy, I could ride
You're
forever
in a
like
nice
this.
comfortable gear. You're
Hmm.
cruising along like 17 miles an hour. Take
I
a sip of your bottle.
The problem is I'm not in comfortable gear. Like some of the people that I ride with, they're wearing they look like they're dressed like cowboys, kind of like checkered shirts. They have the kind of that casual cycling gear and these bikes with bigger tires and gravel style bikes. And here I am on my road bike, man, kitted out. And so I'm always a little bit of the odd man out.
Yeah.
It's a,
I'm all for it. I think it's so cool. I think it would be great. And then yeah, you just like ride home. You don't have to see the same road twice. Something very appealing about it. So I'm also going to do my homework. I'll look around. I'm kind of curious, like how far the metro goes, or whatever trains we can jump on. But yeah, that would be fun. Well, if anyone's listening and
mm-hmm,
they know of something in the Chicagoland area or a little bit beyond
mm-hmm.
where we could, in theory, take a train out and then, ride back.
Yeah, maybe we'll even go to your. And if you're in Europe, let us know. Maybe sometime after September or so. I think things open up for me.
I
I'll come.
love that.
I'll come and do a ride. Um,
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun. And what a great way to put in like some decent miles as well. The one thing, and this is, I feel stupid, frankly, complaining about this, but riding out of the city, there are so many like garbage miles, some
mm-hmm.
people call them, just so many lights and so many stops. And, by the time you really get out there, it's almost like you got to turn around.
Yeah,
So this is kind of like a really nice option. I think that could be a lot of fun.
yeah, yeah. We'll take a look. Maybe it's something to aim for sometime in the summer.
Sweet, dude.
Yep. I think we can end it here. I think
Do,
that's good.
do
You
you want
gotta
to?
work. What?
Yeah, I gotta work. But do you want to remind folks how they can get in touch with us, and
Yes.
if they want to give us a shout out, or I don't know, you complain, write us a poem, a limerick, a haiku.
You can send us an email at mail@bikeshopsociety.com. You can leave us a voicemail at 833 number 4 my bike. That's 833 my bike. Um, our socials, Danny.
Hmm.
I think we got to talk this week about turning all that stuff on, starting to populate some of that stuff. I thought it might be a good idea to start making some friends out there and letting people know what we're doing here.
All for it.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I think it's that time, you know. And yeah, people, please contact us. We'd love to hear
Yeah,
from you.
get in touch. Let us know how your riding is going, and
Mm-hmm.
if you're watching any of the bike racing, and if not, what else you're into. And send us any questions you have for our upcoming guest, your buddy who was racing in Alaska. And just a little update, we are trying to get a very special gentleman on the show, and there's just a little bit of a logistical challenge, but we're gonna nail that down hopefully sooner than later.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're pretty stoked to get this person on. I think people really love to hear what he has to say and learn about him, and I'm sure you'll have good questions too. And yeah, I think we got good stuff coming. It's a good time of year, Joe. Spring is, I know it's technically here, but yeah, I think it's really going to start blooming soon, especially
Yeah.
with all this great racing and just yeah, the great riding and the great weather.
Yeah, it should be fun. It should be fun. Well, navigate this time, figure out what it is, what it's going to be like. Producing a podcast and running a busy bike shop at the same time, and but I'm looking forward to it, and I want to see what happens. Maybe we getting around to doing some stuff in the shop, and involving the shop a little bit more. That would be kind of fun too. So,
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
yep. Yeah, well, I think that's it, Danny. I think that's it.
Adios, Joe.
Adios, Danny. Till next week, I will play us out.